I know the title of the message doesn't seem to sound very biblical today, but it will make sense towards the end, I hope. If it doesn't, you'll all walk around like, why did he preach against Switzerland? What's wrong with those people? I mean, why did he focus on those poor people? Why did he attack Switzerland today? So hopefully it does make sense by the time we get to the end of the service. The Switzerland approach. See, Switzerland has a long rule of staying neutral when it comes to conflicts. We don't typically hear about the wars in Switzerland. We don't turn on our news and go, oh, look at that. They're at it again. The Swiss are at it again. Look at that. They're fighting over cheese. You know, we don't typically hear about the battles of Switzerland. It doesn't hit the news or anything. They remain neutral. They're known for being neutral. They seem to be a relatively passive people. They're just good people. They're relatively passive people. Even their military arsenal doesn't appear to be threatening. I mean, the army knife, the Swiss army knife would not be my weapon of choice when it comes to battle. I mean, it's hard to even get the scissors out in a life or death situation. Like, oh, it's not the weapon I would choose. So if you think about the Swiss army, even their weapon seems very passive. They are just good people. They don't really, you don't think of conflict when you think of Switzerland. And actually, they're known for being neutral. There's even an expression that goes along with it. Some people will say they are Switzerland. That means they're not going to take sides in the argument. Hey, I'm Switzerland. You know, I'm out. We're fighting. What do you think? I'm Switzerland. That means I'm remaining neutral. I'm not going to get involved in this conflict. I'm not going to get involved in this argument. I'm just going to remain Switzerland. That it's even an expression. They're just really good people standing neutral. That's what they are. They just want to remain neutral. Well, sometimes there's a lot of wisdom in staying neutral, but sometimes it can be a crime to stay neutral. If there's an argument going on and you don't want to get in the middle of it, there's nothing wrong with staying neutral. If the kids are fighting about this or that or the other thing, like, okay, I'm not going to get involved. How about this? Ceasefire. Yeah. Just stop it. Now the conflict is resolved. I'm not going to get in the middle and pick a side on this argument. I'm going to remain neutral. There's a lot of wisdom in remaining neutral, but a lot of times there is danger in remaining neutral, and it is a crime to do this. Look with me at the book of Numbers in chapter 32. Israel's discussing the reality of crossing the river Jordan to take the promised land. They are finally going over the Jordan River, and they are going into the promised land. They are finally going to take this thing. But the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Gad have taken a liking to the land that they are living in on this side of the river. Like, we really like this land. We don't want to go into the promised land and fight. We don't want to go in there and take the promised land because we're perfectly content where we're at. We like this area. So they have a request for Moses. So they go to Moses and they have this little conversation that comes up about, we really like this. We don't want to go over there and fight the Canaanites and in and out of a battle. Like, we like this. We like this. So they go to Moses and have this conversation. Look at verse 5 of chapter 32. Therefore, they said, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us over the Jordan. These tribes have made themselves at home. We like this. Please don't take us. Please don't take us over the River Jordan. We don't want to go to the promised land. We don't want to go any farther. We like this right here. They like the land. It was good for raising cattle, and they don't want to leave. They like where they're at. God had given them the promised land, and all they had to do is walk in and obey God, and they will receive the promised land. God says, I've already gone. God talks in past tense to the children of Israel. I have delivered them into your hands. Oh, we haven't fought yet. How did you do that? That's how good of a promise this is. It's consider it done. I have already delivered them into your hands. Go ahead and go in and take it. But the tribe of Reuben and the tribe of Gad are like, but we like this. We don't want to go over there. We don't want to fight. We don't want to go through all the conflict and everything. We just want to stay where we're at. The whole nation of Israel is about to go to war to possess God's promise. And these two tribes asked to stay on the opposite side of the river. Why should they go to war? They don't even want the promised land. We don't even want to go in there. So why would we fight for something that we really don't want to possess anyway? We just want to stay where we're at. Moses sees this as a problem. Like, okay, there's a hiccup here. So he needs to mention this to these two tribes. Look at verse 6. And Moses said to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war while you sit here? So why will you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord has given them? Moses knows what will happen if these two tribes sit this one out. Okay, hold on. We have 12 tribes of Israel, and you're saying let's send in the 10, and the 2 will stay out here. I remember a 10 and 2 problem in the past. We don't need another 10 and 2 problem, and I'm going to bring that up here in a second. This time the 2 are going to stay out and the 10 are going to go in. The last time the 10 wanted to stay out and the 2 wanted to go in. Here we go again. I don't want to do this, so I see a problem here. The other tribes will become discouraged if you two sit this one out. They will become discouraged. The children of Israel knew that taking the promised land was what God wanted them to do. This is what they've lived their lives for, that we get to go into the promised land. God has given that to us, and there's coming a day where we get to take it, and this is the day. And these two tribes are like, yeah, we're Switzerland. But like, you can't be Switzerland. You can't do this. You can't sit this one out. To refuse to take the promised land would resemble disobedience to God, the one who told them to go in and take it. Moses has already been down this road. He's already seen what happens when people do this. So he explains why this is an issue. Guys, you can't sit this one out. You have to go in with us. You can't sit this one out. So he explains it. Look at verse 8. Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel so that they did not go into the land which the Lord had given them. Moses was reminding them of what happened during their parents' generation. Moses sent in 12 spies into the land. They came out, and 10 of those spies says, oh no, there's giants in the land, the cities are fortified, we're scared to death, let's not go in. And then you had 2 spies that said, no, it's good, let's do this. Joshua and Caleb say, no, let's go in. But the other 10 spies are like, we're out. So the rest of Israel is like, we're with the 10, the majority rules. We don't want to go in. So Moses is explaining, the last time this happened, do you remember what your fathers did? They discouraged the whole nation of Israel from going in. The rest of the Israelites chose not to go into the land because of the 10 spies. It had been 40 years since that happened. And now the younger generation is getting ready to go into the promised land, and the tribe of Reuben and Gad come up and like, okay, so let's make a deal. You go fight, and we'll stay here. Deal? Like, not much of a deal. It's not much of a deal. But they're trying. They want to make this deal. For 4 decades, they all waited for that generation to die off, that first generation to die off, so they could go into the promised land. And now 40 years is up. They get to go into the promised land now. It's finally time to enter, and these 2 tribes say, nah, we don't want it. Like, here we go again. Moses knows what the lack of obedience will do to an entire population. You gotta stay with us, guys. You gotta stay with us. As soon as the other tribes hear that these 2 tribes don't want to go in, discouragement's going to spread like wildfire. Yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen this happen before, and it happened with your fathers. So you've got to do this with us. God will have no choice but to punish your disobedience, just like he had to do to the generation before you. Don't do this. Look at verse 14. And look, you have risen in your father's place a brood of sinful men, to increase still more the fierce anger of the Lord against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he will once again leave them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all these people. I saw it happen before, and it will happen again. You can't disobey God. Moses was telling them, if they choose to obey, things will be good. But if you choose not to obey, Others will follow in your footsteps and they will be lost. I've seen it. It's going to happen, guys. You can't do this. 40 years, Moses has been waiting for this generation to be able to enter the promised land. He has waited 40 years to go in. Now it looks like there's reluctance once again. Man, every time we get to this point, now we have reluctance all over again. This had to be so discouraging for Moses. Like, man, we've been in the waiting room for 40 years waiting to go in, and now we're ready to go in, and you two tribes are like, yeah, we don't want it. We don't want to go in. I don't have another 40 years. Think about Moses' situation. I was 40 when I took this gig, and then I had to wait 40 years for the last generation to die off. This is not looking good. I don't have another 40 years to wait for another generation. This is it. This is all I've got. It's all or nothing, and it doesn't look like we have all because of Reuben and Gad. This is the point where the tribes of Reuben and Gad have to make a decision, and they came up with a plan, and it is a good plan. This is one of those stories where you see everything going in the negative, and then suddenly it takes that twist. Usually Israel, when things are going in the negative, you know they're going to ride it out to the end. We're going negative all the way. You know, put it in full throttle, let's go all the way negative. But in this story, Israel turns it the other way. It doesn't go in the negative the whole story. Look at verse 16. Then they came near to him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our livestock and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will be armed, ready to go before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones will dwell in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. Not bad. Not bad. This was the best answer Moses could have asked for. You really do want this land? Yes. But here's the deal. We will go in with you, and we will fight with you until that land is secured, and they have that land, and we will not come home to ours until it's secured for everybody else. So can we still have this land, and we'll still do our part? If Moses agrees, these tribes get the land that they want, and Reuben and Gad still help the others conquer the promised land. That's the deal. With this deal, the other tribes would still be encouraged that this is possible. Okay, you're going to come in with us even though you don't have to, because you're not going to possess any of it. You want this. So you're going to go in even if you don't have to? Yes, that's going to encourage the people where the future generation did not do that. Reuben and Gad decided to lead. They decided to lead in this situation. They chose to do the right thing because of what it would do for others. Conquering the promised land wasn't going to benefit them because they don't even want the land. We don't even want it. But we're going to take the lead on this one. We're going to do what's right because of what it's going to do for the other people. So we'll go ahead and take the lead on it. But they understood what it would mean if the other tribes saw them back out. Moses was absolutely right. This generation needed to see all of God's people moving forward and claiming the promised land. They need to see us all working together. Moses is absolutely right. It's the right thing to do. So, let us build a place for our children on this side of the Jordan River. We'll take care of our livestock here, and then when you go into the promised land, we will go in armed and we will fight with you, because it's the right thing to do. So they presented this idea to Moses. They come up to Moses and say, okay, you're right, but here's our plan. Look at Moses' response. The whole mood changes here in the story. Look at verse 20. Then Moses said to them, if you do this thing, if you arm yourselves before the Lord for war, and all your armed men cross over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land is subdued before the Lord, then afterward you may return and be blameless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. Moses was honored to give them this portion of land if they kept their word to help their brothers take the promised land. That was a good deal. That was a good deal. This rose far above the hearts of their fathers. Their fathers are like, yeah, we're out. We're not going in at all. Absolutely no deal. No deal. We're just not going in. This generation steps up and says, okay, it's still right that we fight, but we still want this land. So here's the deal. The previous generation wasn't focused on leaving a legacy of righteousness for their children at all. No, we're not going to do the right thing. We're just not going to do the right thing. But this generation says we still need to do the right thing. Even if we don't gain anything by it, we still need to do the right thing. The first generation was trying to control the here and now. We're scared to go in. We don't want to go in, so let's control our situation here. They were also not including God, and they were not trusting in God. When the tribes of Reuben and Gad presented this option to Moses, he realized that they were not cut from the same cloth as their parents were. Wow, you guys did rise to the occasion, even though you could have done the same thing they did. You're doing everything right. You're doing it differently. These men were willing to do what was right before they secured what they wanted. Let's just do what's right first. That's when Moses speaks up with one of the most well-known verses in the Bible. This verse used to scare me as a kid. It terrified me. I hated this verse because that meant I'm not getting away with anything. That's what this verse meant. Like if I wanted to go do something, my mom she was so good at this. She reminded me of this verse. So this is one of the most popular verses in the book of Numbers, and Moses uses this one here. He knew that there was a chance that they would change their mind. Maybe you'll be afraid and you'll want to come back. Maybe you'll get mad at the other tribes of Israel and you'll want to come back to your possession over here. You might want to quit. You might want to get out of this. So he laid down one more thought. Look at verse 23. But if you do not do so, then take note, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. I hated that verse as a child. I did not like that one. Hey, can I go to so-and-so's house? Yes. Remember your testimony. Do what's right. Okay. And if you choose not to, like, yeah? Be sure your sin will find you out. Like, I don't like that verse. I don't like that verse at all. Basically, like, God's still going to see it. Like, yeah, I don't care for that. I don't like that one. I don't like that verse, but my mom would use that constantly. Hey, I'm not going to be there to watch you. Yeah, I know. Be sure your sins will find you out. I don't like when she does that. I don't like that at all. But she did it constantly to me. If they choose to go back on this agreement, Moses wanted them to know that your sin will catch up to you. Believe me, it will catch up to you. It would affect the other tribes, and it would bring about results that you don't want. Remember, your sin will find you out. It would even create animosity between you and the rest of the tribes of Israel if you back out on these guys. A lot of bad comes with backing out on this. So what was the sin that Moses was referring to? What sin's going to find them out? Be sure your sin will find you out if you don't do this. Is it the sin of lying? Is that the sin that would find them out? No. And even though that sin has repercussions, lying does have repercussions, it wasn't the sin that Moses was talking about. What Moses is referring to is the sin of omission. That's the sin that Moses is referring to, is the sin of omission. This isn't a sin that we talk about a lot. We omit that one. We don't talk about the sin of omission. We think about sins that we can see causing harm to other people. Stealing and killing and lying and outbursts of wrath and lust and stuff like that. We know about those sins. We talk about those ones. But what is this sin of omission? What is that? It's the act of saying, I am Switzerland when it comes to the things of God. I'm going to remain neutral when it comes to the things of God. It's the sin of omission. It's not like you're planning on doing anything wrong. I'm not going to do anything wrong. You just aren't planning on getting involved with the things that are right. I'm Switzerland. I'm just going to be Switzerland. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to do all these things that I know are bad to do. What are you going to do? I'm also not going to get involved in the things that are right. I'm just going to be Switzerland. I'm going to be Switzerland. That's my goal. You want to remain neutral when it comes to the things of God. This is the sin Moses is talking about. You just want to enjoy your Swiss Army knife in your possessions. You just want to sit there and have a good old time while you navigate through life. I'm not going to do the bad things, and I don't really want to get involved in the good things either. I'm just going to enjoy my scissors, and I'm going to cut paper or whatever I'm going to do. I'm just going to enjoy life. That's what I'm going to do. I am Switzerland. I'm not going to be on either side of this thing. Well, there's a problem with that mentality. James, the one that doesn't care about our feelings, that book of the Bible, read the book of James, you'll just leave crying because he really doesn't use tact. He just smacks you with the word of God. James tells us in James chapter 4 and verse 17, this is how he says it. Look at this verse. Therefore, to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. You want to ease us into that, James? No. If you know to do good and you don't do that, that is sin. Like no tact. He just smacks us with it. Because I don't know if he had emotions. He just hit you with it. It doesn't say if you know what is bad and you do it, it is sin. And even though that is sin, it absolutely is, it's saying if you know to do good and you omit it, it is sin. Now that hits us a little different. I didn't do anything bad. Did you do anything good? No. You're Switzerland. I see. You're Switzerland. That's sin. Well, that's not right. That's not right at all. If you know to do right, why do you take the Switzerland approach? Why do we do that? Why do we take the Switzerland approach? A better question would be, what happens if we do? What happens if we do take that approach? Is it just a neutral move? Is that always just neutral? Is it just a neutral move? Is it just us sitting this one out, but the job will be done by somebody else? I mean, somebody else will do it, right? We're just sitting this one out. We're just not getting involved. We were called according to his purpose. That's what we were called to do. We were called according to his purpose. Look at Romans chapter 14 and verse 7. This says, for none of us lives to himself, and no one dies to himself. For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. We have forgotten what God has done for us. Do you understand that he bought you with a price? Anybody remember what the price was? The life of his son? He purchased us with his son. We belong to the Lord because he paid that price for us. How are we able to take a neutral stand when it comes to our relationship with God? How can we do that? How can we? I'm Switzerland. You can't be Switzerland. You can't take that approach as a child of God. Neutral just encourages other people to remain neutral. That's what it does. What are you doing for God? Nothing. Are you sinning? Nope, I'm not doing anything wrong. And God's okay with this? I'm just neutral. I'm not doing anything wrong, but I'm not getting involved with all the right things either. What's that going to do? That's going to teach other people to remain neutral. And that's a huge problem. When the 10 spies in that first generation refused to obey the Lord and go into the promised land, they decided to remain neutral. We just don't want to do it. They didn't go back to Egypt. They did not, like, we're going back to Egypt. No, they didn't make the decision to go completely wrong. But they also didn't go to where the Lord told them to go, into the promised land. They just decided to remain neutral. The only thing they contributed at that point was the example of what gets accomplished when a person takes the Switzerland approach when it comes to the things of God. A few months ago, we had a pipe break in this building. That was a good time. The pipe broke. A couple guys came in here and gave me a call early in the morning, like, we got a slight issue. So the pipe broke, the water's still flowing. Many people came out to the church that day to help. I mean, once they saw that we had a problem, nobody had to ask any individuals. We all just came together and we cleaned up that mess and we got things going before Sunday. I mean, it was awesome to see the church come together. So let's use that scenario. Let's say someone walked in and saw everyone cleaning up the water. We see everybody cleaning up the water. At the same time, the water is continuing to flow in. Now, this person is the only one who knows how to turn the water off. You're the only person that knows where the valve is. You don't. Everybody else is like, we're trying to keep it clean. You walk in like everybody's cleaning up, and you know how to turn the water off. But you're not helping with the cleanup, nor are you preventing the water from coming in. You're not going to turn it off. You're just going to be Switzerland. I'm not going to get involved with all this. And I don't want to walk all the way to that valve. I'm just going to be Switzerland. I'm not going to get involved in either side. I'm just going to remain Switzerland. We can't say, well, because they didn't get involved, they're off the hook, right? Would everybody else say, well, they didn't help clean up and they didn't turn off the water, but since they weren't involved at all, really, we can't blame them for anything. I mean, they're off the hook, right? They remain neutral, so we really can't say they were part of the problem or the solution since they remain neutral, right? I think every one of us would recognize that they were part of the problem. Every one of us would say, we're judging and shaming that individual. Yeah, we're not supposed to, but we're going to do it anyway. That was wrong. That was wrong, because even to this day, we're still cleaning up water. We see that person as part of the problem. But they remain neutral. But we can see how neutral can be a problem. In that scenario, we can see that. Peter does a great job of waking us up. He does a really good job of waking us up and bringing us to the reason why Christians take the Switzerland approach. Why do Christians do this? And many Christians do this. I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm just not doing anything right. A lot of Christians do this, and Peter does a great job of opening our eyes to why people do this. Look at 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 33. Or verse 3. It says, as his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who called us by glory and virtue, by which have been given to us exceedingly great and precious promises, that through these you may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Peter starts out by reminding us that through Jesus Christ we have been given everything that we need that pertains to life and godliness. You've got it all. You've got everything you need that pertains to life and godliness. God made us partakers of his divine nature. Removed the sin nature, made us partakers of the divine nature. Our sin nature was destroyed with the old man. We have been given a new spirit, which has been made one with his spirit. We have escaped the corruption that we were in because of what Jesus Christ did for us. That's how he starts this whole thing out. I want you to know what we have and who we are because of Christ. For this reason, Peter tells us that we need to get involved. And look at how he tells us to do it. Look at verse 5. But also for this reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, to your virtue knowledge, to knowledge self-control, to self-control perseverance, to perseverance godliness, to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness love. For if these things are yours and abound, you will neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Because we have escaped corruption, and God has made us partakers of the divine nature, do this. Grow in the virtues of God. Grow in the virtues of God. Learn about his character. Develop the self-control to not become neutral. Develop that self-control. Don't falter. Stay with it so that others can see the love and kindness of God through you. That's what you need to do. Because of what he did for you, this is what you need to do. We need to do this. If we as Christians are not doing these things, it's because of one very tragic reason. And this is the reason why a lot of Christians take the Switzerland approach. This is the reason. Look at the next verse, 2 Peter 1:9. For he who lacks these things is short-sighted even to blindness, and has forgotten that he was cleansed from his old sins. You forgot, didn't you? You forgot what Jesus Christ did for you. You have let that slip your mind because you've gotten involved in all the blessings. You have soaked up all the enjoyment of life and the issues or the bills and the responsibilities. You are so focused on life right now that you have put it in the back of your mind what Jesus Christ did for you. You're not even focused on that anymore. You've gotten so focused on the life around you that you lost sight of the life within you. Because you're so overwhelmed with life that you forgot about the life that you have because of what Jesus did. And now what are you doing? I'm not doing anything wrong. Are you doing anything right? Oh no, I'm just trying to keep my head above water here. I'm Switzerland. I'm Switzerland. And James jumps out from the background and goes, hey, if you know to do good and you don't do it, I know it's sin. It's sin. And just wanted to make sure you remember that. It's sin not to get involved with what God is trying to accomplish. It's wrong. We've forgotten about the cause of Christ. We've let it go to the back of our mind. You're not doing anything to prevent the cause of Christ from moving forward. You just aren't doing anything to help it move forward. You're Switzerland. We're just Switzerland. Do we consider it a light thing to be called a children of God? Ask yourself that. Do you consider that a light thing to be called a child of God? Remember what went into that to make you a child of God. God didn't consider it a light thing to try to get a relationship with you. He said it was worth everything to have a relationship with you, even the life of his son. It's not a light thing. And now that we've taken on the title of a child of God because he saved us, a lot of us sit around like it's a light thing. I got my ticket to heaven, I'm good to go. What are you doing now? Oh, I'm Switzerland. That's a problem. That's a problem. But I'm not doing anything wrong, except for one thing. You're not doing anything right. You're not doing anything right. Neutral is not a safe place all the time. It is not a safe place all the time. We cannot sit back and wait for the next generation to take the torch and run with it. We cannot do that. This is your chance right now. You can't wait for the next generation to do this. If we are taking the Switzerland approach, we're actually showing them how to do or how not to do what we're saying they should do. I'm not getting involved. You go out there and you get involved. Well, what are they going to do? Same thing you did. And when are we going to have a generation that steps up and moves for the glory of God and for the cause of Christ and reaches these people? When are we going to have that? If we're all taking the Switzerland approach, just neutral. I just want to remain neutral. The sin of omission is extremely dangerous. It can destroy an entire generation, which we have an example of that in the Bible. It can destroy an entire generation. It's time to get involved. In your life right now, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you're doing or what you're not doing. I don't know. I don't follow you around. I'm not that guy. I'm a little bit busy. I don't know what you're doing. All I know is what I'm doing. I'm not trying to sin against God. I am not focused on doing all these wrong things. I assure you, I am not. I'm going to see how many lies I can tell today, and I'm going to do this and that, and take the life of 3 or 4 people. I'm not that guy. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not focused on doing the wrong. But if I'm not focused on doing what's right, and I'm not getting involved in the cause of Christ, then I am doing what's wrong by declaring that I'm Switzerland. Hopefully everybody can see that. Your job is, God did give you a life, and enjoy it. Please, everybody enjoy it. If you say, well, I'm going to use some of the money in my bank account to buy ice cream, and I'm going to follow you there, because there's nothing wrong with using your money to buy ice cream. Just when you do, turn around and I'll be like, I'll have the butter pecan. I'll be that guy. And since you're buying ice cream anyway, I mean, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. There's nothing wrong with spending your money on that. Enjoy life. God gave you a life, enjoy it. But if none of that, if you don't use your resources as far as money or time or possessions or relationships or anything, if you don't use that for the furtherance of the cause of Christ, then you're just standing there eating ice cream declaring that you're Switzerland. And do you see how we're not doing anything except for causing harm? By staying neutral. James said if you know to do good and you don't do it, it is sin. That in itself is a sin. Now the goal isn't to get everybody to focus on their sin. The goal here is to remind everybody there is a cause. There is a cause, and a high price has been paid to bring you into the family of God and have a relationship with you. And there's people outside of that relationship right now. Don't declare yourself Switzerland. We need everybody to get involved. We are the church. We are the church. I am not the church. You are not the church. We are the church. And we're all going in several different directions all week long. In different paths, we're going to meet different people all week long. So when you go out there, remember, we are the church, and we cannot stand neutral. We cannot, because that in itself is wrong. We have got to be involved for the cause of Christ. Enjoy life. Go ahead and eat your ice cream. Go ahead and enjoy the life God gave you and the blessings God gave you. Please go out and do that. But don't forget about the cause of Christ while you're enjoying the blessings that God gave you. Don't forget the blesser. Don't forget the blesser.